We were invited to do the Parkway railway station, which was a national television special. We picked up a show in Parkway, the original pitch from Wizard of Oz. We also noticed that the world had changed. All of a sudden, we could walk down the street, and people would be walking by wearing Kiss t-shirts. We had arrived. Ezrin's recording style was leagues beyond anything we had seen. In some ways, it seemed like a throwback to a previous era. But in other ways, it was clear he knew what he wanted and how to get it. Records are recorded by separating all the different elements into tracks. You can move a fader and only hear the guitar, or the snare drum. Once everything was recorded on a 24-track machine, you then added effects like echo or chorus and mixed it down to a stereo mix. What you hear at home is a mix. Ezrin would record 2 or 3 guitars, add effects, and submix them, which means there was no turning back. He would commit to a sound very early on. It further solidified the notion in my mind. Destroyer also marked the first time we tried experimentation. Peter's drum set was set up in the loading area at the back of the studio for one of the tracks. His drums faced an open elevator shaft. Microphones were placed close to the drums and at the end of the elevator shaft. That way, the sound would come back like thunder. Peter was separated from the rest of us, so a video camera was set up to film him. This was still at the early stages of video, so it all seemed very science fiction to us. On one of the takes, Peter stopped playing, and when we looked up, there was a guy carrying out the garbage into the elevator nearby. Flaming Youth was probably the most difficult song to record. It was composed of a title Paul had, which he lifted from a band we had opened up for called Flaming Youth. A verse and a chorus that Ezrin, Paul, and I tossed back and forth, and a bass riff I had from an old song called Mad Dog. Ezrin put all the pieces together and then threw a bizarre time signature at us, which was torture for a basic drummer like Peter. Peter never counted bars of time. He had never done it, and in fact, didn't understand the fundamentals. Ezrin had to start from the beginning. Where was the 1 and where was the 2? And then he had to teach Peter in particular what a bar of music was, how long it lasted, and how one counted it. We also tried to crystallize what a chorus and a verse were. All this education made Peter very irritable. It was also very time-intensive. We were used to going into the studio, not thinking too much about technicalities, and just doing it. We had never encountered anything like this. Kiss was a rock and roll band. We were unschooled, self-taught musicians. We got through the song, but it had to be done in pieces and then edited together. Shout It Out Loud was written in Ezrin's apartment. Paul and I had gone over to play new material. Ezrin sat down at the piano. Paul had a guitar and suggested a few changes. When there was a basic verse idea, I suggested shout it out loud, as in shout it, shout it, shout it out loud. This wasn't a unique idea. Wicked Lester had recorded a song we never put on the album called We Want to Shout It Out Loud, written by Cook and Greenway. The demo was originally done by the Hollies. They never used it. We tried to record it, but it never made it to the final stages. I had always loved the notion of shouting anything, as in Shout, by the Isley Brothers. Shout It Out Loud seemed like a natural follow-up to Rock and Roll All Night, where Rock and Roll All Night proudly proclaimed I wanna as the key idea. Shout It brought the fans into the party. Well, the party's begun and you want some fun. Great Expectations was a song I had written initially about the band. The original lyric went something like, you watch Paul playing guitar, and you see what his hand can do, and you wish you were the one he was doing it to. And you watch me singing this song, and you know what my mouth can do, and you wish you were the one I was doing it to. Ezrin thought the song was too self-serving if it talked about the band. Although Beth was very clearly about the band. Beth, I hear you calling, but I can't go home right now, because me and the boys will be playing all night. I would have preferred to have the band names mentioned in the song. I had fondly remembered Beatles songs and hearing, Take It, George. When Destroyer came out, Kiss became the biggest band in America. We went from opening up for other bands to headlining at Anaheim Stadium in California, with opening acts like Bob Seger, Uriah Heep, and Ted Nugent. We had billboard and television commercials. Coming soon were the Kiss makeup kits and lunchboxes. While almost every record we recorded in our 30-year history has elements I would change, in retrospect, Destroyer is an album I wouldn't change. I might do away with the sound loop at the top of the first song, but other than that, I wouldn't change a thing. Kiss has played thousands of concerts. We have added and dropped songs from our set list purely as a response to what the fans seem to like. Destroyer has stood the test of time. More than any other record we ever recorded, it probably defines what the band is and what it stood for. The songs are Detroit Rock City, Shout It Out Loud, God of Thunder, and others continue to be a staple of our live shows. Rock and Roll All Night, Alive and Destroyed, 1975-1976. The relative failure of the Rock and Roll All Night single disappointed us slightly, but it didn't scare us, because we knew exactly what we had to do. We had to go right back on the road, which was where we were strongest and connected with our audience most powerfully. This time, there was an extra wrinkle. We had decided to record some of the shows and release them as a live album. We had the 3 studio albums, but we never felt as though they captured the band. They were merely documents. For the full Kiss experience, we needed to let fans have a taste of our live show. Not only the theatrical elements, but the power of the band. The recordings that would become alive were drawn from a number of concerts, including shows in New Jersey and Iowa. The majority of the album, though, was taken from a late March show at Cobo Hall in Detroit. In some ways, the decision to take the Detroit concerts was the easiest one we ever made. A city is never just a city. It is always defined by the people who live in it and by what they do for a living, which then in a very real way affects their lifestyle. Because New York is a cosmopolitan city, it was the birthplace of Studio 54. Southern cities were more repressed in some ways, and wilder in others. Detroit, being the hub of the auto industry, was anti-fashion, much more meat and potatoes. I wouldn't be surprised if McDonald's sold more hamburgers in Detroit than anywhere else. It's very blue collar, a real middle American metropolis. The big stars that emerged out of Detroit through the late 60s and early 70s, the MC5, Ted Nugent, Bob Seger, and Grand Funk Railroad, were similar guys, loud and passionate, with minimal potential and a bit of grittiness. Detroit is all about no-nonsense music. From our very first record, Detroit had taken us to heart immediately. People in New York and Los Angeles misread us. They affected a certain sophistication and felt that we weren't up to their standards. But Detroit understood our mix of fun and energy from the start. After the Detroit show, we were presented with an award and went to a party thrown in our honor. There was plenty of action at the party, lots of booze, music, and liquor. I wasn't interested in booze, but I had had my fill of music for the day, and I even had my fill of the band for the night. A writer from Cream magazine was doing a feature on me at the end. I was ready to leave with him when I spotted the waitress moving through the crowd with a plate of brownies. My sweet tooth got the better, and the pounds gone for some reason. I must have eaten 6 or 7 of them before I had enough. Within 5 minutes, I became Gene in Wonderland. Immediately, my head shrank to the size of an apple. My feet moved to the size of oars. My hands grew bigger the longer I stared at them. I grew frightened, took the hand of my female companion, and ran out to the waiting room. Once inside, I became very thirsty for milk. I had to have some, and within a block of the concert hall in the seedy part of Detroit, we pulled up to an all-night diner. Inside it was quiet, and there were a few people with their heads down, either eating or drinking coffee. I stepped up to the counter, thinking that my voice couldn't be heard because my vocal cords must have shrunk along with my head,